One weird thing. Okay.
Okay, we went from practice session to webinar.
Yes. It has a little delay, so we're going to just give it a few seconds here. Jackie said it was about 30 seconds. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. Kelly Cawthorn is committed to bringing monthly webinars to our clients to keep you informed on the relevant topics and issues happening around the Capitol. Before we dive into our agenda, I'm honored to introduce someone who plays a critical role in shaping the policies and priorities that guide our state's budget and investments. Representative Ann Bollin currently serves as the chair of the Michigan House Appropriations Committee, a role that places her at the center of decisions that affect everything from education and infrastructure to public health and economic development. Representative Bollin brings a thoughtful, results-driven approach to public service. Her leadership reflects a strong commitment to fiscal responsibility, transparency, and ensuring taxpayer dollars are used effectively to support Michigan families and communities. Prior to her time in the Michigan House, Chair Bollin served as Brighton Township Clerk for over 16 years, earning a reputation as a dedicated public service servant and a tireless advocate for good governance. We're grateful to have her with us today to share insights, answer questions, and engage in a meaningful discussion. And while she's just an all-around awesome human being, please join me in welcoming Chair Ann Bollin. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for that very nice introduction. And you gave a great overview of kind of how I'm approaching the job. So thank you.
Well, thank you. All right, well, we're going to jump right in with some of the things everybody is dying to know. So, Madam Chair, this is your first time leading the appropriations budget. We know that you have been on the Appropriations Committee during your time in office. How have you enjoyed this experience thus far?
Well, I am enjoying it to its fullest. I know that it's just about a blip in time and it goes very fast based on the work we have to do, but it really is a great privilege to serve in this capacity. And I'm looking forward to doing good on behalf of all of Michiganders.
So how has this been a little bit different from what you've done in the past?
Well, it's a whole lot different when you're the one that's charged with negotiating the budget, gathering all the data, trying to vet it all, and navigate the entire process. It's one thing, you have the caucus to get through, you have the chamber, and then you have to work with the caucus in the Senate, and you're working with the Senate entirely, and then also with the state budget office and the governor's office. So I do look at it as it's a great opportunity, but it's also a learning experience. And I'm going in with kind of open ears and eyes. There's a lot more to learn than I've ever been exposed to in the state budget, and I think that's an important part of the process.
So we know it's still relatively new. We're still early in this process, but what have you seen so far as some of your bigger challenges to this point?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is they're just everybody thinks their project, their program is great. It produces great results. And look, we have a lot of requests, really requests beyond what I ever could have imagined. And, they have great advocates for them, but it's just not doable. One, that the state just doesn't have the dollars to go around, and two, identifying those really don't fall within our role of state government as well. And I don't go in with the idea that I want to say no or to cut and gut. It's to what is what meets the needs of the people across the state of Michigan, what's a good value for the taxpayer.
Well, that's important for us too, as Kelly Cawthorn with a lot of our clients who are part of the state's budget and do have some of those priorities, hopefully, that will fit into your budget. But this leads into kind of our next question. So Speaker Hall and members of your caucus have really seemed to prioritize road funding, rolling back the income tax. We've heard now last week out of the Government Operations Committee Public Safety Trust Fund as seem to be priorities, and they have large budget implications. How do you see those things impacting the overall final budget?
Well, I think that they are going to all be integral parts of the upcoming state budget. And yes, we have made it a priority to, hopefully execute a roads plan, $3.1 billion. Reversing the income tax hike is roughly about $700 million. And then implementing the Public Safety Trust Fund. And that would take, 2% off the top of the 4% of the 6%, 6-cent sales tax. And I am confident in reviewing the budget that we will be able to find the monies to be able to implement those and sustain them. And will it mean that we're going to have to cut back in other areas? Yes. But when we look at the $83 billion budget that is this year's budget, there's quite a bit of one-time funding in it. So I certainly don't think we should all be getting alarmed over there's going to be all kinds of cutbacks. Yes, there will be cutbacks, but a lot of it will be one-time funding. Looking at what is constitutionally required, statutorily required, what is court ordered, and then what is a priority and what is a preference. So working very closely with all of the subcommittee chairs, because I think it's extremely important to work closely with them to help everybody get educated on that particular budget that they're assigned to, and then entrust and empower them to help us through the entire budget process. So it's not just cut and gut. Or, float and bloat, as I like to say. It is a matter of identifying. In some cases, there will be programs or dollars areas where we need to expand, not just contract necessarily.
So of that $83 billion, how much of that is general fund? And I assume all of those things that you just talked about are things that would come out of our general fund budget. And are they one time, as you've talked about, one-time things, or they would expect it to be ongoing revenue? Is that correct?
Well, not necessarily ongoing revenue, but the general fund budget's roughly about, maybe $20 billion at this point. It's certainly grown in the last, couple of years. And, there were some anomalies with COVID and what we had done in past years' budgets to anything that could be COVID money could be used for. We saved the money. That's how we built a $9 billion rainy day fund, if you will, and balance sheet. And with that $9 billion, that's just about gone now. And a lot of that has been appropriated over the last 2 years. And while I think, some people think the intention is that we'll be ongoing, it's just not practical nor sustainable that we will be able to continue with all those programs.
So what at this time are the non-negotiable items from your perspective in getting this budget passed?
Well, one is, school aid fund. Number one, school aid fund. We need to make sure that we're covering special ed at-risk students. We need to make sure that we're covering the mental health and school resource officers. So that has to do with the school aid. As far as the general fund, the other budgets, we know the fundamentals. We did put forth a shutdown prevention plan that shows what those absolute fundamentals are of state government that should we have a shutdown, which it was a prevention shutdown, not a budget, we would be able to continue moving forward. I don't anticipate that. We're not working towards that. What we are working towards is a fiscally responsible and sustainable budget. And the general fund budget, number one priority is finding $3.1 billion for roads. I think that we will be able to do that. We've put forth a very comprehensive plan. It sits in the state Senate now. We know that fixing the damn roads is a priority for the governor. It is for the House. And I've heard indications that the Senate also wants to work at making roads a priority. So that will come, at the top of the, important ones to make sure that we are moving through. We certainly want to fund public safety. We want to make sure our local governments can continue to operate. And, we are going to have to pull back state government. Everybody's expecting us to do that. They're doing it in their household budgets and their small business budgets.
So, in regards to fixing the damn roads, have you started having these conversations with the Senate and just completing timelines for getting this budget done?
Yes, we've had conversations, not on the timeline, but we have had conversations about roads plan. And, I think it's fundamentally we have to have the roads issue resolved before we actually get into the nitty gritty and completion of our budgets through each chamber. But we are going to continue to work in the House on our individual subcommittee budgets as they are doing in the Senate and move through. We have the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference, third week in May. And so while we may be on a timeline to introduce some of our budgets into our subcommittees, we'll see them continue to roll out through CREC.
So we know we have a statutory requirement of completion of the budget by July 1st, June 1st, one
June
of those.
30th. Yep. July 1.
July 1. So do you anticipate the timing for completing the budget will be around that point? I mean, we know you have prepared for, and hopefully we don't have to get to that shutdown prevention, but is there still a hope and anticipation that we'll meet the statutory requirement of July 1st? I know
Well,
there's a lot of us in the lobby corps that really are hopeful of that because we like the summertime, but
I think there are, many people, members and staff as well, that would like to see it done by June 30th. We're going to work the very best that we can. We know that some budgets will likely come out sooner because people are relying on those, like school aid. I'm hopeful that we can move through, but we are constitutionally required to present a balanced budget to the governor by September 30th, and we absolutely will meet that. And we'll continue to work through the spring and into the summer as needed to move those over to the Senate and hopefully onto the governor's desk.
so at this point, we know we still haven't closed the books for 2024. Is that still required? Or is it something that you see that will just be baked into the FY26 budget process?
Well, I don't anticipate it being baked in. Basically, I think it's, we're kind of done with fiscal year 24. There was an opportunity to close the books, prior to December 31st. That wasn't done by those in charge prior to the Republicans taking majority back in the House. I think there is an outstanding issue. I think we do have some obligation to pay some of the bills from 24. But that is not my priority. We did just have a hearing on it. As many people know, the governor presented roughly $369 million worth of close of the books. And when we started to have conversations and negotiation, it really got pared down to less than a third of that. So, I wasn't convinced that that is what we needed to close the books. The close of books really, I've been told, should have been done by March 31st. Basically, it might hinder our ability to take on more debt. And frankly, I don't think the state's in a position to be taking on more debt. So, I'm satisfied that we're going to move forward. I know there are some fixes for fiscal year 25 that we have to work on as well. And so we're going to continue to do that.
So I just want to let our audience know too, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Chair Bollin, please feel free to put them in the Q or question chat function, and we will work to get to those throughout this webinar as well. I failed to mention that earlier, but if you do, just put them in the chat function and I will work to get to those throughout the course of this conversation. So one of the things that's new this appropriation cycle is the House resolution that was passed at the beginning of the year, requiring that if there was an enhancement grant, that a sponsor was associated with each of those, and that a form was completed outlining that request with all of the pertinent details, really trying to create more transparency around those requests. This week is the deadline for those, April 24th, I believe. We're wondering if you can give us a little bit more detail, or can you outline that process for those legislatively directed spending items? What do you see are the items that need to be have forms submitted? Why really do you see that this is a process that's necessary, that was different from last year? And then what comes next after those things have been submitted?
Okay, well, that's a
It's
whole
a
lot of
whole
questions in
mouthful,
one,
I
right?
know.
All right. So I'll first start with what this is. So the legislatively directed spending items are also known often as pork or earmarks, right? And I introduced, was a sponsor of a resolution that then became a House rule in the Michigan House of Representatives that would require any of these one-offs, if you will, projects to be identified in the process before we adopted a budget. What's happened in the past is they end up, coming into the process very late in the game, and there's just a very brief list presented, and they're done in the dark of the night, if you will, through a conference committee, and then members are asked to vote on them. So we really don't feel, we know that having been around the state over the last year, people have an overall, low confidence level in trust in public, in government. And so we certainly wanted to bring more transparency and better governance to the process. So what this is this will require any one-off project, if you will, non-competitive project, to be submitted to have a legislative sponsor from the Michigan House. And on the form, it will require an explanation or description of the project, description of why it is a good investment for Michigan taxpayers, the dollar amount, and then there are some other requirements as well on who these projects will go to. And they must and can only go to nonprofits who have been around for 3 years and that have had a presence in the state of Michigan for the last 12 months. We saw in the last budget cycle there not enough scrutiny was given to some of these projects, even over the last few years. And the problem surfaced after the fact, and actually after the Michigan taxpayers had signed the check. And so we want to take some of that out, make sure that we are spending wisely and appropriately the taxpayers' money. And so the deadline this year is May 1st. And what it says is that for 7 days, it has to be up on a public website before a budget can be adopted or it can be incorporated. And this is to allow ample time for people to view these, vet them, and for allow us to move forward. Now this year, it's May 1st. Years after, it will be April 1. But the deadline really is, we're looking for to have them up and going on the website, submitted by the 24th of April to allow us the time per our resolution and rule that we're required to post them on the website. People can go to the Michigan House website right now. There are dozens of projects that have already been submitted and are up on the website. And we will use this as we move through the budget. It's not to say that it's no commitment to fund these or not to fund these. It's just that it is much more transparent process and makes for better governance.
Well, we know that at Kelly Cawthorn, we are working to get our projects submitted too. So it has been a good process to ensure that we have all the information and that we have found our champions to be able to submit. So thank you for that. It gives some more clarity to the process. And we know that with any new process, we're all learning together too. So thank you for helping to provide a little bit more clarity to all of our clients on that one as well. So one of the other things that we've heard a lot from our clients about, and I'm sure that you're getting a lot of questions on too, and it's every day is a little bit more just I think uncertainty is what's happening at the federal level and how is that going to impact us at the state level. And so with all the unknowns coming from DC, are we concerned that Michigan is going to need to backfill any of the general fund dollars to help fill any of the cuts that are coming from the federal government?
Yes, I do think that it is a valid concern. It is something that we should be monitoring and are monitoring, but I don't think it's something that we should, get overly concerned about at this point. We've had no indication formally from the federal government that they're cutting back some of these more critical programs, in the way of education, Medicaid, and these are programs that, are administered through the state. And while we have to be mindful of that, and I'm looking ahead not just to build a budget for this year, but to build a sustainable budget that we will be able to build upon next year and the year after and thereafter. So things that I am looking for, they've indicated in Washington that they're not going to cut Medicaid. I don't believe that they will cut Medicaid dollars. What I do see is perhaps something in the future they may do is cut back their match. So right now, the federal government reimburses us 90% for Medicaid, and we're liable for the other 10%. So as we're moving through this, thinking and anticipating, all right, and this is when you have this kind of vet projects. Do you have expansion of services? Do you need to monitor the service? Do you need to measure the services and make sure whatever you are delivering, that it actually is successful? Or sometimes, you have to tweak things. So, we are looking at it, monitoring it. As you know, last week, the governor issued an executive order in particular to DHHS to evaluate what the cuts may be to Medicaid. We'll continue to have conversations as that executive order and they do their review. I'm sure that I will be sitting down with the budget office and with the Senate and looking at what their findings are and coming to conclusion on how we move forward.
I assume, if we are faced with some of those cuts, it's going to impact some of the other work that we want to do as well in the state. There's only so much money that the state has if we're trying to take it all from one source too. So I'm sure, for our folks, obviously we have a lot on the Zoom today that are really wanting to see, road funding done and other things. So, obviously if we're facing cuts from the federal government, we're concerned about all of it. So how we get all of these things done at once are really things that we're all watching. And obviously we have a lot of people on this Zoom who are concerned about healthcare cuts and how that's going to impact the work that they're doing and schools and university funding and the like. So yeah, we're all a little concerned about that trickle down effect and what it will have too, for sure. One of the interesting things too this year is the new oversight committee, and we've been really interested in if you see the oversight committee playing any real role in the budget process.
Yes, I actually think that they are and they will continue to play a complementary role to the appropriations process, and identifying areas maybe that are not working well for the state, areas that are working well for the state, areas where we need to shore up financing, maybe it's tools of measurement, and so nothing significant at this point. Excuse me. But we will continue to work. I see the Oversight Committee as a partner in this process. And as we all know, oversight is the role of every committee, Appropriations Subcommittee and Policy Subcommittee. It's just that the Speaker, we're taking a greater focus on this. We've seen so many things change over the last several years. And I think it's time that, and it's prudent that we take a little bit deeper dive into some of these things. With COVID, well, it was 5 years ago, we saw really significant changes made to the process. We saw legislative changes from the bench through our courts. We saw a lot of money for new programs. And there's really been really very little accountability or look back. And so that's a key role of oversight as well.
I think
A
we're
key
still
focus right
feeling,
now.
yeah, and still feeling the effects of COVID, which is probably still being looked at through that process.
Yes.
Yeah. We had one question that came in from a client earlier. So given that so many older Michiganders rely on community-based services to age in place, do you see an appetite to expand funding for support for programs like My Choice or home delivered meals?
So that's an excellent question. And I echo those concerns that we do definitely have an aging population. And I will say that I have a special place in my heart because I did start out as a recreation therapist with a specialty in geriatrics. So, and ran many of these programs that are critical really to aging in place, taking care of our elderly. And so I think we are going to have to be very proactive in how we look at these programs. And it's just not as simple as saying, let's expand a program. There are a lot of other resources that are needed around a program, like Meals on Wheels, for example. We want to people to age in place. People have a preference to age in place. We continue to have workforce issues. Meals on Wheels, which is just a phenomenal program. Earlier, actually last year, late last year in the fall, I had the privilege of attending a ribbon cutting for a new Meals on Wheels kitchen in my very own district, and how important it is, but the need for volunteer drivers. So I think we have to start looking outside of the box and anticipate, when we're thinking about expanding programs, and there definitely is a need for expansion, but actually, how can we execute these? Are there different ways to do it? Is there a way we can partner with other organizations, other disciplines to meet the needs?
Thank you. I just want to put a call out. This is a great opportunity you have here as our audience members to ask the chair of the House Appropriation a question today. So please, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. It's clearly a Monday and I'm having trouble speaking today, but we do want to offer that opportunity to each of you. So if you have any questions, please feel free. I know that we have a number of universities and community colleges that we also work with very closely. Capital outlay has always been something that is really important to our university and community colleges. Do you see the opportunity for a capital outlay budget this particular year?
Well, we are looking, very hard at all these issues that are facing in higher ed. And while there's a desire for new capital outlay and new program, new, projects, if you will, I think it's also important that the state really, we have to make sure we've invested in a lot of these buildings and making sure that they continue to be maintained and that we have capital funding to keep them, right? They're our real estate, if you will. And so we're looking at it all, looking at different opportunities, different ways to advance our interest in higher ed. And certainly it's a big component. It's a big goal of everybody across the state to make sure that our kids are educated really from very early on all the way through. We have some of the world's greatest universities in our state, and they all serve a niche. Having served on the higher ed community college budget as a freshman, I learned that early on, just what a vital resource they are across the state, really to the nation, but also in particular the communities that they're housed in.
Absolutely. Investing in higher ed and our community college system is not something you're ever going to go wrong with in the state of Michigan. So we know that for sure. All right, we did have one question that came in. So the Michigan Adult Community and Alternative Education Association, McKay, is seeking a $2 million investment in the Adult Literacy Opportunity Fund ongoing annual investment on behalf of nonprofit adult education providers that do not receive school aid funding. Are you aware that this will be included in the budget? That's a lot that was a whole mouthful. I'm sorry.
That certainly was. And I can tell you there's absolutely no commitment to that being in the budget or not being in the budget. We're continuing to go through. We have to look at all the requested projects, continue to look at really how to spend the dollars wisely. We will be so much is hinged on how the consensus revenue estimating conference comes out the third week in May. And so, we will be looking them, but I want to give everybody the assurance that we will be looking at every submittal, every project to see, and evaluating on its merit, its needs, and also the value it brings based on the return on the investment, if you will, across the state.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate that. Well, I'm going to give one last opportunity for any additional questions that anyone might have here today. Again, I can't thank you enough, Chair Bollin, for taking the time. We know how busy you are in this season when appropriations is right in the thick of it, trying to build out this budget for the state. We are really grateful for you coming on and spending the time and answering all of these questions for our clients. Thank you again. And it doesn't look like we have any additional questions, but we really just appreciate all you're doing for us and for our clients and the time that you've given us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and certainly your clients should know that Kelly Cawthorn does an excellent job of making sure their interests are presented and the value that they bring to the state. And I look forward to continuing our working relationship on behalf of so many.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.